Reborn. I decided to put my younger brother's name on the marriage application this time. This time, I would make Eva's wish come true. In this life, I was one step ahead, putting the groom's clothes on my brother and placing the engagement ring on his finger. I personally orchestrated every meeting between her and my brother. She took my brother to the northern city, and without a second thought, I headed south to study university. It was because in my previous life, after I had turned 50, she and my son were still begging me for a divorce. I was making sure to fulfill her final connection with my brother. In this second life, I only wanted to spread my wings and fly, leaving love and emotions behind. Chapter 1. Back in the 20th century, I listened to the woman in front of me speak. Just fill in the name and give it to me. Eva impatiently tapped the table. I stared at the marriage application, my fingers lightly brushing the rough edges of the paper, my thoughts drifting. In my past life, I had filled in my name solemnly, like I was writing a sacred decree, then excitedly dragged Eva to buy wedding candy. But I had been greeted with a fierce scolding. Just because she was in a hurry to return and cook soup for the sick Leo, I responded perfunctorily, I got it. I got it. I glanced up at her anxious expression, her eyes frequently darting toward her watch. Today, she wore a white shirt dress, the sleeves rolled up to her elbows, revealing her slender forearms. I remembered that Leo liked her in this outfit the most, saying it made her look fresh and clean. If you have something to do, go ahead. I suppressed the bitterness rising in my chest and feigned ease. I'll finish it and hand it in myself. She seemed to let out a sigh of relief, her tone softening. Don't worry, now that we're getting married, I'll be responsible for you. But you can't keep getting jealous of Leo. If others find out, it'll hurt Leo's reputation. I fell silent. I had explained countless times in my past life. But in her eyes, I was just a jealous and petty older brother, unable to tolerate my kind younger brother. She didn't say anything more and hurriedly turned to leave. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my chaotic heartbeat, but my mind couldn't stop replaying the events of my previous life. On our wedding night, she used the excuse of taking care of her sick brother and never came home. When she went on a trip, she only took Leo, saying that Leo had never been to the northern city. Even on the day our son turned 1 month old, Eva didn't have time to come, wholeheartedly comforting the divorced Leo. And then, before I died, my son was still desperately advising me, Dad, just divorce Mom. You're not as good as Uncle in any way. Mom has been wronged staying with you all these years. Let her go. I lay in the hospital bed, looking at my cold wife beside me, who didn't say a word. It was in this deathly silence that her thoughts were silently confirmed. I bit down on my lower lip hard until I tasted blood, slowly loosening my grip. No, in this life, I won't repeat the same mistakes. I picked up the pen and slowly wrote my brother's name in the applicant section. Leo. Eva. Since you love him so much, let it be as you wish. I handed the filled-out application to the staff, took the marriage certificate, and turned to leave the Civil Affairs Bureau. I wasn't sad at all. Instead, I felt a sense of inexplicable relief. Chapter 2. In my previous life, after our parents passed away due to work, Leo and I were adopted by the Lin family. Leo was sweet-tongued and knew how to flatter people, making the Lin elders treat him better than their own son. Even Lin's mother had early plans to marry Leo off to Eva, but when Leo said, I don't want to compete with my brother, Eva willingly married me. In reality, Leo just wanted to keep Eva dangling. Back then, Eva was just a regular female soldier, and he wanted to wait for something better. I went to school to make sure I understood everything Leo needed to prepare for university, including living expenses, before I could feel at ease returning home. When I got back to Eva's family housing, as soon as I entered the door, I heard Leo's voice softly say, Eva, do you think he'll get angry if you come to spend time with me instead of your brother? You can spend time with him anytime. But you're physically weak, and I'm worried about you staying alone at home. Leo laughed happily, then suddenly pretended to be melancholy as he continued, will you still care about me after you marry him? Of course. Eva's voice was firm. Who else would I care for if not you? If your brother treats you badly, I'll divorce him. I clenched my fists tightly, barely managing to suppress the overwhelming bitterness in my heart. So even in this second life, hearing my wife speak so indifferently to me still made me sad. I adjusted my emotions and walked into the room as if nothing had happened. Eva came out of Leo's room, a hint of awkwardness on her face. I was just checking on Leo. He wasn't feeling well. I gave a faint then turned to go back to my room. In my past life, I had argued with her countless times because of their overly ambiguous relationship. But this time, I didn't want to waste any more time or energy on it. She stopped me. David, why don't we buy some wedding candy and give it to the people in the family compound? I looked at her in surprise, then realized it must be an attempt to compensate for my lack of complaints. No need. There's no need for this kind of formalism. She was taken aback, probably finding it hard to imagine that I would reject this suggestion. Is it because you're angry that Eva is taking care of me instead of you? Leo came out of the room with an innocent and wronged look on his face, and he was wearing the linen suit that I had bought specifically for our wedding photos. It was the most popular outfit in the 1950s. In my previous life, I had saved up for months to buy it, never once daring to wear it. When Leo saw my gaze, he quickly explained, "I saw this outfit on your bed today and thought it looked nice. I wanted to try it on and forgot to take it off." He lowered his head, twisting his fingers, looking like a child who had done something wrong. Eva subconsciously spoke, "David, don't." I interrupted her, my tone calm. "It looks good on you. You can keep it. I've never worn it anyway." I could smell the faint blood and sweat odor on the linen suit. Thinking about it now, it made me feel sick. Under their surprised gazes, I returned to my room and locked the door. I pulled out my folder, which contained my admission letter to Guangdong University. I had always liked the southern region, especially the finance major that I had long admired. In my previous life, I gave up my education for Eva, willingly staying at home to take care of their family. But this time, I was lucky enough to catch myself in time. I only wanted to live for myself. I flipped through the calendar. There were only 10 days left until I could leave this place. Time was tight, but I had to make the most of every second to prepare. A knock on the door came suddenly, and I opened it impatiently. Eva stood there holding a bowl of noodles, her tone gentle. "You must be hungry. I made you some noodles." For a moment, I felt a wave of confusion. In my previous life, she was either cold as ice or spoke harshly to me. I hadn't seen this warm and affectionate Eva in a long time. "No need. I already ate outside." "How is that possible? You've always been so reluctant to spend money," she added, a little surprised. Her words stung me. I had been reluctant to spend money before, living frugally and using most of my hard-earned money to buy things for her. Now that I was about to go to university, there were many things I had to spend money on, and every penny had to be carefully calculated. I looked up at her, my tone calm. "I remember a few days ago, I gave you 50 yuan for wedding expenses. It seems you didn't buy anything with it. Why don't you return it to me?" She froze for a moment, then awkwardly explained, "That money, I used it to buy Leo a pair of leather shoes." I couldn't help but scoff. How tedious. It was always like this. "Then there's nothing more to say. I'll close the door and sleep. I'll give you the money tomorrow," she said, a hint of irritation in her voice. "We're married. Do you really need to be so calculative?" I couldn't help but snort coldly. "So it's fine to spend my hard-earned money on someone else, but I can't even ask for it back." She knew she was in the wrong, but still stubbornly muttered, "You're impossible." I couldn't be bothered to argue further, slamming the door shut with a bang. Chapter 3. In the following days, I sold off some worthless household items and the keepsakes from my past life that were full of memories. Looking at them now, they seemed like nothing more than cheap junk. I packed everything up and sold them at a low price to a scrap collector, exchanging them for a few meager bills. In the afternoon, I continued sorting through my belongings when Eva stood in front of me, holding 50 yuan in her hand, her tone stiff as she said, "Here's your money." I took the money and nodded. "Thanks." She looked at me, her gaze complicated, and then shifted to the luggage I was packing. "I plan to take Leo with me to the northern city to join the military. You don't need to pack anymore." I didn't stop packing and simply nodded. She seemed a little uncomfortable with my attitude, uneasy even. "What's been going on with you lately? You seem like a different person." I turned my head impatiently. I didn't want to get into it, although Eva didn't love me. If she found out that I had written Leo's name on the marriage application, she might even consider re-registering the marriage for Leo's sake. I didn't want to be involved with this pair of dogs anymore. "It's nothing, just packing," I said. "Once you go to the northern city, I'll move back to the countryside." She breathed a sigh of relief and then explained, "It's not that I don't want you to join the military. It's just that Leo hasn't been to the northern city before and wants to take a look. After a few months, I'll come and get you." I nodded absent-mindedly. In the previous life, she had never come to get me to join the military for a full 8 years. It wasn't until Leo married a Beijing military beauty that she finally brought me to the northern city. Defeated, she looked at me, clearly not used to my silence. Usually, when we were alone, I would babble non-stop. Now, I was tight-lipped, and she became uneasy. "Didn't you always want to take wedding photos? Let's go to the photo studio tomorrow." "That wouldn't work tomorrow. I plan to buy some things for university." I was just about to make an excuse when Leo came in. He casually wrapped his arm around Eva's shoulders. "Eva, what photo studio? I want to take pictures too." Eva smiled and patted Leo's head. "Sure, let's all go tomorrow. You guys go ahead. I have something to do tomorrow." Eva furrowed her brows. "What could be more important than taking wedding photos? Let's go take the photos first. I'll go with you to buy whatever you need." Her tone was firm, as if she wouldn't take no for an answer. Leo chimed in. "Yeah, bro. Are you refusing to go because of me?" I didn't want to argue, so I simply nodded in agreement. Early the next morning, I heard Eva coaxing Leo to get up in his room. The red numbers on the calendar reminded me, only 4 days left. In 4 days, I would finally be free from this life. Just as I was growing impatient, they sluggishly came out of their room. Eva had already prepared warm water and was personally washing Leo's face. In my past life, I had been blind to it all, naively thinking that if I married her, she would treat me the same way. I was lost in thought when Eva hesitantly walked over to me, holding a ring in her hand. Wang said it's popular to wear wedding rings now, so I bought one for you. I didn't take the ring. In my previous life, this ring hadn't even existed. As soon as Leo saw it, he immediately frowned. It looks so nice. I want one too. I casually offered it to him. Then you can have it. Eva's face immediately darkened. Stop messing around. That's our wedding ring. Leo snatched the ring from her and slipped it on his finger, shaking his hand at Eva. Eva, do I look good wearing it? Eva looked at Leo with adoration in her eyes, smiling and nodding. Then, she turned to me, her expression guilty, and whispered, I'll buy you one next time. I nodded indifferently. I had heard that promise many times before. Which one of them had ever been kept? Chapter 4. We went to the photo studio, and Leo went first. He even took quite a few pictures with Eva. When it was finally my turn with Eva, the photographer raised the camera, but then awkwardly lowered it. Sorry, I've run out of film. I inwardly rejoiced, but my face remained calm. Oh, well, I guess that's it then. After leaving the photo studio, Eva took a train ticket from her pocket and handed it to me. It was a ticket for the northern city. 4 days later, I didn't mean to leave you behind, she said. I'll get settled first and wait for you in the northern city. The journey to the northern city took 3 days and nights. I didn't know how she thought I could withstand it, especially since there was only one spot for the military assignment. Where would I even stay? But asking about it now wouldn't yield any answers. Seeing me accept the ticket, Eva clearly relaxed. Don't worry, even if you don't stay in the military family quarters, you're still my only husband. I will treat you better from now on. I only see Leo as a younger brother. For the first time, my expression softened. When had she ever said such soft words? Suddenly, a car came rushing around the corner and headed straight for us. Eva grabbed Leo's hand and swiftly pulled him out of the way. In the confusion, someone pushed me. I saw the car heading towards me, but my body froze in fear. Too stunned to move, the car swerved sharply, knocking me aside and dragging me along. Pain surged through me, and my vision blurred as cold sweat poured down my face. The driver scrambled out of the car, nervously asking, Hey, are you okay? Are you hurt? The crowd gathered around, pointing and whispering. I looked past the onlookers and my gaze fell on Eva. She was comforting Leo, completely oblivious to what had just happened. Perhaps she noticed but didn't care at all. A bitter smile tugged at my lips, and the last shred of hesitation in my heart vanished. So this was her idea of treating me better in the future. The driver took me to the hospital. After some checks, the doctors confirmed it was just some external injuries and minor internal displacement. Lying on the hospital bed, I was in pain, but strangely, my mind felt calm. Late that night, Eva entered, looking exhausted. When she saw that I was awake, a brief look of panic flashed across her face. David, how do you feel? Is it better? I looked at her coldly and said nothing. She wrung her hands nervously, and after a pause, she tried to explain. Leo was a bit too shocked, so I was with him the whole time. And, under my gaze, she fell silent, looking uncomfortable. David, let me explain. At that moment, it was so urgent. Leo was closer to me, so I instinctively. She paused again, seemingly trying to find the right words. I didn't know you would get hit. I interrupted her. When are you going to the northern city? She answered cautiously. I'll leave tomorrow. I see. I want to rest now. You can leave. I closed my eyes, signaling the end of the conversation. Eva seemed to want to say something more, but in the end, she left without pushing further. The next day, Lynn's mother came. She entered with a thermos, her face full of smiles. David, Eva asked me to take care of you. How are you feeling now? Much better. Thank you, Mom. She ladled soup for me while chatting on and on. Eva, that girl. She's so clumsy. I don't know if she can take good care of Leo. Suddenly, she seemed to realize something, and awkwardly fell silent. Mom, actually, it's Leo who married Eva. Lynn's mother froze, staring at me in disbelief. It took a long time for her to react. What? What did you say? The marriage application I submitted is in Leo's name. At first, Lynn's mother was stunned. Then her face lit up with wild joy. David, you're such a good child. I knew you were the most understanding one. She eagerly took my hand. Thank you, David. Thank you for making it work for them. I gave her a faint smile but said nothing. Making it work. It was only making it work for me. She had always had a soft spot for Leo, even in my past life. No matter how much I took care of her. When she got older, She still gave all her inheritance to Leo. Mom, don't tell Eva or Leo about this, at least not for now. Lynn's mother smiled broadly. Of course, I understand. Well, what do you plan to do now? In a few days, I'm leaving too. I didn't reveal my exact destination. Lynn's mother seemed to want to ask more, her mind filled with thoughts of their marriage. I closed my eyes, pretending to fall asleep. On the day I was discharged from the hospital, I didn't notify anyone. Before leaving, I wrote Eva a letter. Eva, when you read this letter, I will already be on the train to the south. I know you've always liked Leo, and I'm letting you have him. Our fate has run its course. I wish you both happiness. I put the letter, along with the ticket to the northern city and our marriage certificate, into an envelope and sent it to the northern city address. With my suitcase in hand, I headed to the train station. Chapter 5. The air in Guangdong was humid and warm, and as I stood in front of the university, I felt a bit dazed. Walking through the campus, I had a strange sense of being reborn. During the day, I sat in class, attentively listening and absorbing knowledge. At night, I worked part-time at a small restaurant, serving dishes and washing plates, my back aching from exhaustion, but this weariness made me feel grounded. A month later, I had slowly adapted to this busy and fulfilling life, but one day, as I was walking near the dormitory building, I saw Eva. David, why did you do this? Why did you put Leo's name on the marriage application? Why didn't you go to the northern city? Her voice was filled with anger and confusion. I looked at her coldly. I don't want to be with someone whose heart belongs to someone else. It's disgusting. It hurts. She stared at me in disbelief. How can you say that? You were never like this. I turned my face away, my stomach churning with waves of nausea. I didn't want to look at her. Not for a second. Eva, I just want to focus on my studies and start a new life. Leo is the one you've always wanted, isn't he? You two should cherish each other. Don't come and disturb me anymore. She tugged at her hair in frustration. What nonsense are you talking about? I've always treated Leo like a brother. I snorted. Which family has siblings hugging and sneaking kisses? Once, I had caught her stealing a kiss from a sleeping Leo. The tenderness on her face was something I would never forget. Her face flushed with shame and anger, and she snapped. David, stop talking nonsense. Leo and I are pure. Her so-called brother-sister bond was, to me, utterly repulsive. Let me go, and let yourself go too. Her face turned pale with fury, but she couldn't find the words to retort. I remembered when I first arrived at the Lin family's home, the fear of being a guest in someone else's house, not daring to eat enough. At night, when hunger became unbearable, I would sneak outside and eat leaves from the trees, and Eva saw me. She shared her snacks with me and comforted me. Don't be afraid, David. I'll protect you from now on. That warmth made me fall for her little by little. So, even though Eva didn't love me at first, I was willing to marry her in the past. In the following days, Eva still lingered on campus. I deliberately avoided her, not wanting any more contact, but I never expected that she would go to the principal, trying to have me expelled. When I was called to the principal's office, Eva was sitting there, upright. I was furious. Eva, what exactly do you want? Why are you trying to have me expelled? I want you to come back with me, she said, standing and walking toward me, reaching out for my hand. I quickly stepped back, avoiding her touch. Come back, so I can watch you and Leo get all lovey-dovey. Her face froze for a moment, then her anger flared. David, stop talking nonsense. We're still married. You running all the way to the south. Being in a long-distance relationship, what's that supposed to mean? Her shamelessness was laughable. Eva, your husband is Leo. The marriage certificate has his name on it, and the person you think about is also him. Her face turned ashen, and gritting her teeth, she spat. That was a mistake. Mistakes should be corrected. My previous actions made you misunderstand, but I won't do that anymore. My heart sank. These were the same words she had said in my past life, but in the end, she just turned around and went back to Leo. I turned to the principal, speaking earnestly. Principal, I really want to continue my studies here. Please don't expel me. The principal looked at me, then at Eva, and after a moment's pause, he said, Miss Lin, since you and David have no relationship anymore, you have no right to request his expulsion. I sighed in relief. Eva tried to say something else, but the principal cut her off. Miss Lin, unless you have other matters to discuss, please leave. I have work to do. In the following days, Eva continued to haunt me. I couldn't escape her, and my studies began to suffer because of it. But what troubled me even more was that Leo came as well. Eva, please, let's go back and get a divorce. I don't want this. I don't want to steal my brother's wife. I'm a bad person. He clutched at Eva's clothes, tears falling down his face. Eva comforted him, holding him close and gently patting his back. Leo, don't cry. It's not your fault. We'll go back now. I'm sorry. I made you suffer. Leo cried pitifully, pretending to kneel before me. Brother, I'm sorry. Please don't be mad at Eva. I know it was a misunderstanding between Eva and me. Don't kneel. It's my fault. I made you suffer. We'll go back now. As he said this, he shot me a look, one that seemed to accuse me of being unreasonable. A crowd of students gathered around, whispering and gossiping. I couldn't be bothered to watch this drama anymore. I turned and walked away. Let them act all they want. I wasn't going to play along. Chapter 6. It seemed that Leo had some influence. Because Eva didn't show up again that day, I threw myself into my studies, joined the school's math club, and met Lily. She was tall and slim, wore black-framed glasses, and had her hair tied in a ponytail. When she smiled, it was bright and sunny. She was excellent at math and often helped me with my work, and over time, we became more familiar with each other. Just as I thought my life had finally gotten back on track, Eva's letters started pouring in, one after another, persistent as ever. David, are you still mad at me? I know I was wrong. Please come back. I know I made a mistake before. Please believe me. You are the only one in my heart. David, there should be a limit to how much one can hold a grudge. What do I have to do for you to forgive me? I ripped her letters to shreds and threw them in the trash. I didn't know what she thought gave her the right to believe I would change my mind. Maybe it was just her thick skin. At the restaurant where I worked part-time, the smell of oil and smoke filled the air as I quickly cleaned the tables. I looked up and saw Lily sitting in the corner. She gave me a small smile. I quickly avoided her gaze and continued working. When my shift ended, she was still sitting there, with several untouched dishes in front of her. Why don't you eat with me? She asked, gesturing to the empty seat across from her. I'm good. I've already eaten. I tried to refuse, but my stomach betrayed me with a loud growl. She chuckled lightly. You can't be shy now. Sit down. Unable to refuse her kindness, I reluctantly sat down across from her. A hot clay pot of soup bubbled with steam, warming me up against the cold. I dug in, not caring about my image. Slow down. No one's going to steal your food. Halfway through, I suddenly felt a tickle on my nose. I looked up and saw Lily smiling at me, holding a grain of rice she had taken off my face. Does your face want to eat too? She teased. I blushed deeply, hurriedly looking down. I knew she liked me. Her gaze didn't try to hide it. But right now, all I wanted to do was focus on my studies. The rest could wait. When winter break came, Lynn's mother kept calling, urging me to come home for the new year. In the end, they had raised me, so I couldn't be too heartless. After thinking it over, I bought a train ticket, packed up gifts, and returned to F-City. As soon as I entered the Lynn family's door, I heard a sharp, angry shouting. Eva, what do you mean by this? I'm telling you, you are my wife now. I froze. Leo was sitting in a chair, yelling at Eva. Eva's face turned pale, but she didn't dare argue. I want that watch. Go buy it for me now. Leo, can I buy it next time? I've already used up this month's allowance. Eva said cautiously. It's your fault for being useless. Still just a company commander. You didn't give the money to your brother, did you? Eva's expression changed. Leo, don't say that. I've already cut ties with him. Cut ties? Do you think I'm stupid? You've been writing him letters every few days. You think I don't know? You don't have me in your heart. You only have him. Leo shouted angrily. Eva looked impatient. I told you, I don't. I stood at the door, watching the scene before me, and all I could feel was absurdity and ridicule. In the past life, she hid her communication with Leo from me. In this life, she was hiding her letters to me from Leo. In the end, she was just someone who had her cake and ate it too, never truly loyal to anyone. Lynn's mother was the first to notice me. Chapter 7. David, you're back. Come, talk to Leo. This child's temper is getting worse by the day, Lynn's mother said, grabbing my hand with a hint of coaxing in her voice. I withdrew my hand and said flatly, I'm tired. I want to go rest in my room first. Her expression stiffened for a moment, but she didn't press me further. Instead, she turned to continue softening Leo with her words. She was like a completely different person compared to the commanding mother-in-law I remembered. Back in my room, I unpacked and pulled out the New Year's gift from Lily, a red cashmere scarf. I wrapped the scarf around my neck and looked at myself in the mirror. A smile unconsciously tugged at the corner of my mouth. That evening, there was a knock on the door. I opened it to find Eva standing there, looking exhausted and uneasy. David, we need to talk. I stepped aside to let her in. She rubbed her hands together, mustering up the courage to say, David, the husband I've always wanted is you. I've been waiting for you. Leo's temper is getting worse, and he's spending money recklessly. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Waiting for me? Eva, do you even believe that yourself? What do you think I am? Someone you can call and dismiss at will? Her face flushed, and her eyes were filled with panic. David, let me explain. I cut her off. There's nothing to explain. You're married to Leo now. What else is there to say? Wish you both a long, happy marriage, and may you have children soon. She was silent for a few seconds, as if recalling something. I've been dreaming a lot lately. In the dreams, The man I'm married to is you. You're kind and gentle, always taking care of your parents back in the old home." She paused, and a hint of pain crept into her voice. "But in my dreams, my eyes are always on Leo. I neglected you, hurt you. I was such a fool. And then, together with my son, I pressured you into a divorce." I was stunned. She dreamed of the past life. She covered her face in anguish. "I'm sorry for treating you like that in the past, and now I want to make it up to you." I suppressed the anger rising in my chest and said coldly, "If you really want to make up for it, then go live a good life with Leo. Don't come bother me anymore. It's better for both of us." Her eyes dimmed, and her voice carried a trace of unwillingness. "But I always feel like the man I should be married to is you." My patience finally ran out. I gave her an ultimatum. "Eva, you need to leave. This isn't the place for you, and these aren't the words you should be saying." She stood up dejectedly, her footsteps heavy as she left my room. I watched her retreating figure, but my heart felt no stir. In this life and the last, she had always been torn between two men, greedily wanting to have it all. I began to think that, since Eva and Leo were already living here, there was no longer any reason for me to stay. Lynn's family was never my home to begin with. The next morning, I packed my things and knocked on Lynn's mother's door. I handed her a bank card, saying calmly, "Mrs. Liu, thank you for all the care over the years. The card contains the money I've saved up over the years. Please take it as a repayment for the kindness you've shown me." Lynn's mother hesitated, trying to refuse. "David, you really don't have to. Please, just take it," I said, picking up my luggage. "I still have things to do at school. I'll be leaving now." With that, I turned and left the Lynn house without a second glance, feeling no attachment. The line at the ticket counter was long, and when it was finally my turn, I found there were no tickets left to Guangdong. I checked, and the earliest ticket available was for the day after tomorrow. Frustrated, I ran my hand through my hair. Where should I go now? I couldn't exactly sleep on the streets, could I? Just when I was at a loss, Lily appeared, her arms full of bags. "David." Her face lit up with a smile as she walked briskly towards me. I was a bit surprised but smiled back, greeting her. "Lily, what a coincidence. You're from F City too." "Yeah, what about you? Are you? You don't have a place to go?" Lily's voice was filled with concern. "Why don't you come to my place for the new year? I'd feel better knowing you're not alone." I froze for a moment and quickly waved my hand. "I couldn't possibly." "Oh, come on, it's nothing to be shy about," she said with a laugh. "It's just me and my grandmother at home. It's so quiet and lonely. You'd liven things up a bit. Besides, it's the new year. You shouldn't be alone, and I can't just leave you to fend for yourself." She paused for a moment, then added, "Please, David, just come keep my poor grandmother company. She's been so bored at home all alone." She looked at me with such a pitiful expression that I couldn't help but laugh. Unable to resist her kindness, I finally agreed. Chapter 8. As I walked out of the station, a cold wind blew, and I instinctively tightened my coat. Seeing this, Lily immediately took off her scarf and draped it around my neck, a faint floral scent lingering in the air. "Cold? Ah, F City is much colder than Guangdong," she said. I shook my head, though warmth spread through my chest. Lily's home was in the old district of S City, in a charming two-story house. As soon as we entered the courtyard, the delicious smell of dumplings filled the air. An elderly woman with silver hair was standing in the doorway of the kitchen, smiling at us. "Lily, you're back. And who's this?" Her gaze shifted to me, and then she happily exclaimed, "Oh my, you've brought such a handsome guy back this year." I couldn't help but lower my head a little, feeling embarrassed. "Grandma, this is David, my friend." Lily smiled and introduced me. Good. Come in. Warm up." Lily's grandmother was busy cooking dumplings, and Lily helped me carry my luggage to the guest room. The guest room wasn't large, but it was very clean and tidy. The sheets on the bed smelled like sunlight. "You rest for a while. The dumplings will be ready soon," Lily said softly as she placed my suitcase down. I nodded and sat on the edge of the bed, looking out at the falling snow. A sense of unprecedented peace and tranquility filled my heart. Maybe this was what it felt like to be at home. That evening, we sat around the dinner table, enjoying steaming dumplings. Lily's grandmother kept piling food onto my plate. "David, you should come over often. Grandma will always welcome you here," she said warmly. I smiled and nodded. My heart warmed. After dinner, Lily suggested we go for a walk in a nearby park. In winter, the park was nearly empty, with only a few couples sitting together, enjoying the rare tranquility. We walked slowly along the lakeside, neither of us saying a word. The snow gently fell, covering us like a thin veil. "Thank you, Lily." I broke the silence, speaking softly. "Thank me for what?" "Thank you for taking me in, giving me a warm shelter from the storm." Lily looked at me and teased, "How about you repay me with yourself?" I froze for a moment, then playfully scoffed. "Nice try." Though I said that, a ripple stirred inside me. "So, how will you repay me? After all, I'm the hero who rescued you from the perilous situation at the station," she continued in an exaggerated tone. I couldn't help but laugh at her dramatic expression and pretended to scowl. "A hero? I think you're just trying to extort me." She pretended to think for a moment, then seriously said, "Let me think. How about you cook me a meal every day until school starts?" I couldn't hold back a roll of my eyes. "You think too highly of yourself. My cooking skills are just average, you know." She smiled at me. "That's fine. I'm not picky. Besides, even if your food is bad, I'll eat it all," she added with a wink. I was amused by her cheeky behavior, laughing as I said, "Is this your way of showing gratitude? It seems like you're just trying to take advantage of me." "Ah, looks like my charm isn't enough." She sighed dramatically and then suddenly stood on tiptoe, getting close to me. "Then should I try harder?" My face flushed a little, and I quickly took a step back. She watched my flustered reaction and couldn't help but burst into laughter. "I was just teasing you," she said, reaching out and gently brushing the snow off my hair. "Let's go back. Grandma will start worrying." When we returned to the Sue family home, Lily's grandmother had already prepared hot ginger tea to ward off the cold. I held the ginger tea, feeling the warmth of the house, and for the first time, I found myself looking forward to the future. Maybe letting go of the past and starting over wasn't such a bad thing after all. On New Year's Eve, fireworks lit up the night sky outside the window. The deafening sound of firecrackers echoed in the distance. I stood by the window, feeling a sense of disconnection, as if I were in another world. "Happy New Year, David." She was very close, and her warm breath brushed against my ear, sending a slight shiver down my spine. I turned to face her, and our gazes locked. In that moment, time seemed to stand still, and my heart skipped a beat. "Happy New Year, Lily." She leaned in closer to my ear and whispered, "I like you, David." Outside, the fireworks continued to burst, their brilliant colors reflecting on my face and Lily's.